without you.
Well, look, you can go to better places. You can go to better places. You know, had I known you were going to say hello, I would never say it.
Thank you. How are you?
Look, I could sell this seat for 5 seconds.
No, you can't.
Oh, yeah, you watch.
Who's this seat on top of it?
How are you? How can I remember? Oh,
Hey, you want to know something? If you walked around this town not talking to the snakes you had to deal with all your life, you wouldn't have any conversations.
Who's the guy who's ready?
I'll tell you who he is. He used to be, I used to sell commercials, specials. He used to be with,
Also, please turn off your cell phones, put them on silent, whatever. I don't turn mine off, but I put it on silent. Actually, I need it for the order because they send me texts, the family. Baruch Dayan Ha'amet. These three words sum up in the Jewish tradition our experience with death. They say the actual translation is praised as the true judge, the judge of truth. Really what it is it's an acknowledgement that we don't understand. We don't understand when somebody's born, why they're born. We don't understand when they die, why they die. At that particular moment of death. So we say these words as a statement of surrender. As a statement of saying, I don't understand, God, and I trust. And it's followed with this phrase, Adonai noten, v'Adonai lakach, Yishem Adonai mevarach. God gave us Alice Weiss. We all had the absolute joy, consternation, love, and experience of the gift Alice Weiss was, is, and will be. And she's gone home. Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel says that when life is an answer, death is a homecoming. And Alice's life was an answer, as we're going to find out more as we go through the service. And because of that, we say, Yehi Shem Adonai Mevarach, that God's name is always praised and we're always blessed by the gifts. The gift of Alice, the gift of Lou, the gift of the Weiss family, the gift of all life. And that's how we begin this memorial service. True instruction was on her lips. She did not give voice to injustice. She walked with God, and she turned many away from negativity. There's going to be, the family is going to speak, and we're going to begin with Jeff. Now. You were right, Annie. He's not good with cues. Right here, Jeff. Right there.
Thank you, Rabbi. Hello. Good afternoon. Thank you all for being here to help us pray for our mom, Alice May Weiss, and to celebrate her memory. I'm Jeff Weiss, and since there are a few of Alice's kids here to speak, I'll keep it brief. Maybe. It seems that there were always a few of Alice's kids here, distracting Mom as she would be busy preparing to travel, or setting up the bagels, or getting the house ready to entertain guests. Mom would call us underfoot, or would say, sorry, Harriet, that we were driving her to drink. Nevertheless, Mom managed us pretty well, almost always able to keep her cool. Mom would never choose favorites. We'd all get in trouble. Where's Dad? There he is, okay. Mwah. I didn't see you yet today. Alice wore several hats. Many of you have seen a few. Some only I got to see. Take this gorgeous photo of our mom right here, for example. The other day, not long after Mom passed, it was quiet, just Anne, me, Evan, and Dad at their apartment, beginning preparations for services. It was a fairly long, tough day. When I finally got home, I told David we had found this great picture of Mom to show at the service. And right away, he turns to me. Oh, was it that one in the frame on the shelf? There's about 30 of those. So in an instant, Anne texted me the picture of Mom. And I show David. And David says, yeah, that one is so pretty. And to my amazement, he goes on to recount how a while back, when Miss Alice could still see, Miss Alice, David's a Southern boy, when Miss Alice could still see, Miss Alice told me that that was her favorite picture of herself. And that in it, she thought she looked better than any actress she had ever known. In this uncanny moment, I recalled that secret hat when Mom would whisper in my ear, "You know your mother is a witch." And just like that, I knew it was Mom who chose this picture that afternoon and decided exactly how she will be remembered. It's amazing, but we all know the same Alice, the woman who had a way of getting her way. Sure, Dad was the superb breadwinner, but it was our mother who spent the bread, and she spent it wisely and judiciously so as to create a wonderful world in which her family would best grow and thrive. Alice Weiss came to bloom in the age of men, yet our mother was never to be overshadowed or exploited or overlooked by virtue of her gender. Our mother had always embodied the strong characteristics we now uphold as the Me Too movement, and for this I am so proud. Mom had an inclination toward strong and clear priorities. Alice Weiss was a strident and active Democrat, knocking on doors for Adlai Stevenson, making calls for Jack Kennedy, hosting fundraisers for Clinton and Obama. I joined her on a 5-block queue, waiting under hot, sad sun on Fifth Avenue to pay our somber respects to the fallen Bobby Kennedy, lying in state at St. Patty's Cathedral. Alice could flatter any Republican and embrace every Democrat. My belief is that Mom's democratic ideals were born of her emotional and compassionate spirit, especially clear during the challenging periods of the Civil Rights Movement and the Vietnam War. Our mother was unique in her uncanny ability to be introduced to any William Morris officer or the most impressive celebrity client. And by the end of the evening, successfully will have earned the Weiss family a valued and close new member. Our mother was Lou's not-so-secret weapon. Like a knight with Excalibur, Lou knew he would never blow a deal because he always had his bunny, his wonderful his wonderful Alice, also the name of a boat, his wonderful Alice guarding his flank and curating his fabulous life. We will miss our mom and vividly recall her in our memory forever. Mwah. Love you, Mom. And thank you again for being here. And I think I'm going to, or the rabbi will introduce our next speaker.
There's no replacing a person of wisdom. There are no mines for silver. There are mines for silver in places where gold's refined. But where can wisdom be found? And where's the source of understanding? There's no replacing a person of wisdom. Aaron, Lauren, and Brian.
Hello, I'm Aaron Weiss, and this is my sister Lauren Lundy, and our brother Brian is over there. We're representing 3 generations today, and so it is with immense love, our families, my family, Rachel, Caleb, and Ayla, Lauren's family, Brad, Caden, and Sienna, and Brian and Talia. We all are here to celebrate and remember our grandma Alice. Being the oldest Weiss grandson, going back about 40 years ago, my first memory of a rite of passage was taking a bath with soap, shampoo, and conditioner in the Scarsdale swimming pool. And one of our fondest memories of Grandma included watching her rigorously ride her exercise bike as she cast mild profanities at the less than intelligent game show contestants on TV each morning. "You don't need to buy a vowel, just solve the puzzle, you putz." Grandma always had the puzzle solved well ahead of everyone. Her intellect, style, gravitas, and humor were unmatched and always on full display. But her gentle, loving bunny side was always the most delicious, to borrow one of Grandpa's most well-utilized adjectives for loved ones rather than food. Eating Nanny's scrambled eggs, cuddling up for a movie, or just laughing over so many glorious memories are really the most special memories. Grandma was always the most gracious of hosts, whether for my high school buddies in Palm Springs or setting up a special love nest for Rachel and I in West Hampton. She always made sure anyone under her wing was always taken care of.
When Brad and I met, my grandma insisted us visiting them in Palm Beach so they could better get to know their future son-in-law. This was, of course, over many cocktails. To this day, Grandpa is still holding court with Brad at 5 p.m. with a glass of vodka, usually toasting my dad. While the Weiss clan has been known to enjoy a good cocktail from time to time, one of my more recent memories of Grandma revolves around tea. In the last several years, I think it was about 4 years ago, Grandma started she wouldn't leave her apartment. So what was a granddaughter to do? I gathered my fabulous lady cousins and we surprised her with a Tiffany-inspired tea party filled with yummy sandwiches and desserts. Grandma was crying tears of happiness with a beautiful ponytail, by the way, and I think we'll always have that special memory together. So thank you for being part of that, all of you ladies.
And speaking of happiness, we are beyond fortunate to have had our children to get to share in so many beautiful memories with their great-grandparents, also known as the Gigis. Whether it was singing and dancing or celebrating with musical instruments, they were always an appreciative audience. And even though it became harder for Gigi Nanny to see throughout the past years, she still always became so engaged with her great-grandchildren and singing and sharing joy with them.
Gigi Nanny taught my girls to dip their first cookies in milk. We had weekly singing sessions with these 2 animated stuffed animals where we'd gather around the kitchen table and sing together. She would wait for the girls to finish Eddie's famous grilled cheese or pasta with butter so she could share in the last bites. The girls and their cousins also loved getting rides on Gigi Nanny's little love seat, the lazy boy, even till the very end when we would visit. And even though she was eager to kick us out, everyone usually, she would never turn down a hug from us, especially her great-grandkids.
Grandma, we will always hold you close in our daily life and know we are far stronger for having followed in your very larger-than-life footsteps. We're also holding a special place here today for our dad, and I know that he is smiling upon all of us and radiating and his mom's love together.
Ever since our dad passed almost 6 years ago, my grandparents have been the glue that has filled a deep void for me and my brothers. So thank you, Grandma and Grandpa, for that. And with that said, I'd like to conclude my grandmother would sing a little saying to her grandchildren and her great-grandchildren. I don't have a good voice, but I'm going to try to do it for her because I think she would love to hear it back. You are the B-E-S-T best of all the R-E-S-T rest, and I will L-O-V-E love you all the T-I-M-E time.
Eddie's coming. Eddie. He needs a 2-minute break.
Okay.
Thank you all very much.
So, let me read something from Ecclesiastes. Oh, those are yours. A season is set for everything, a time for every experience under heaven. A time for planting, a time for reaping, a time for keeping, and a time for discarding. A time for loving. A time for embracing. A time for healing, a time for laughing. A time for weeping and a time for wailing. A time for dancing, a time for birthing, a time for speaking, and a time for silence, a time for seeking, a time for losing, and a time for dying. So really, what we're hearing is Alice was born in 1923, and she died in 2019. If you ever look at headstones or anything, there's always a dash. You know, the year of birth and the year of death. Those two numbers, the year of birth and the year of death, really don't mean much. What really is important is that dash. How do we fill in that dash? What has that dash brought? How is it not just a little dash, but a very long line? We all have a year of birth and we all have a year of death, or will have a year of death. What's important, really, is what's in between. And that's what one of the many things that Alice is a teacher for us, because she extended that dash so very, very much. In the Talmud, it says, the day is short, the task is great. We're not obliged to finish the work, and we can't negate it. That's the big question for all of us. In this time, in this era, just as with every other time and every other era, there are people who want to deny or stop somebody else from doing their part of living. And the Talmud, the Rabbi Tarfon teaches that we're not free to abandon it and we're not free to nullify anyone else's. And I think that that's really also exemplifies Alice. I could go on, but I want Lou to hear what I'm going to say. And I'm the last speaker, so I wanted to just fill in the blank. There's one other thing I can read here. Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel, who's one of my favoriteest teachers, actually, says the deepest wisdom a human can attain is to know that our destiny is to aid and to serve. That we get to live this life. We get to be part of Alice's family. We get to bask in her brilliance and feel her wrath. And that's a gift when we know that we're here to aid and to serve. And Lou's going to need all of our help. He really is. And we get to serve him. And that's pretty joyous. What a gift that is. I'm getting a time signal here, so.
1 minute countdown. That's life. Yes. I could do mine again.
Once was enough. You know, if you're going to give me that opening, I couldn't.
Jill would like to talk about the family a little bit. It would be great. Yeah. We have a moment? Yeah, sure. We have Jill Robinson Sherry in the house.
Hi, this family means so much to me. I have so many last names. My father was head of MGM, and my son, Jeremy Zimmer, was Lou's protege, and Jeff's close friend. And I lived in London for 30 years, and during those 30 years, I'd remember this family and how much they gave to my son, and how much he learned from what a real good, serious Jewish family could be, and what it was. The art, the greatest art there is. I'm an artist and a writer, and I always put that first and put various husbands first, different times, which was no fun for my kids. And I always thought of this family as the ideal, as the That's not mine, I turned it off. As always, the really great representation of the family I grew up in, because my father, Dory Sherry, his first priority was family. His second priority was the Democratic Party and Adlai Stevenson. And his third priority was his faith and his religion. And we were raised with a great strength of that and the feeling and the gathering, the Sunday night gatherings where everybody would be there. And I can remember when he'd have writers over and they'd be reading things. And I remember one night in 1941, they were sitting around the radio. And I heard that Pearl Harbor had been bombed. And I thought, who would kill my grandmother, Pearl's friend? You know, her Belle Sherry was Grandma's best friend. And I knew that one of the great gifts of our religion was this sense of family, the inherent bliss of a unified family. And I was so grateful when Jeff called me and talked to me the other night. And I was so sad and so, wanting my heart to be with you and to be here. And the feel of this family just means so much to me because it is the prototype of love and faith and devotion. And that's a rare gift these days. And I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. No, your glasses are on here. No worries.
My name is Amy Weiss. My name is Amy Weiss, and I am the widow of Alice Weiss's firstborn son, Steve. I first met my future in-laws before I met Steve. I was in New York for television selling season. I was honored to be invited to go to the annual Alice Weiss shopping excursion, which apparently was the toughest ticket in town. Every year, Alice would handpick the women who were to be included in the limousine driven by their longtime driver, Dwight. I remember pinching myself when I got the invitation and crammed into the back seat while Alice told us all of the stores we would be going to. Alice was well known and well respected in the entertainment industry as the wife of Lou Weiss, the chairman of the William Morris Agency. She was also the Grand Madame of New York and held court at all of the finest restaurants. She was a force to be reckoned with. I was in awe of her the first time I met her. Her sense of style and her bold personality was one that I truly looked to emulate. Years later, when I met and married her son, Steve, she welcomed me into the family and treated me like the mother I no longer had. It was then that I discovered her strongest attribute, and that was her love for her family. She was fiercely protective of each and every one of them, while always making sure that the family unit remained strong. Like any mother and daughter, we didn't always see eye to eye, and it was especially hard when Steve passed. But I always felt that she knew how much I loved her son, and she always knew that I would be there for her. A day before her passing, I was able to hold her hand and thank her for the wonderful memories she gave me and the family that she provided for me. I was able to assure her that her mom and her son were waiting for her and that it was okay to go. The day after her passing, I was once again privileged to be able to be a part of the Weiss family as we all gathered to support the patriarch of the family, Lou Weiss. One only needed to know Lou and Alice a short time to realize that theirs was the ultimate love story. Although it will be really hard to deal with the passing, I am comforted knowing that she is holding court up in heaven and waiting till we are all reunited once again. Mom, may you rest in peace.
Rich.
When someone I love passes, the very first thought I get is, now they know everything. All the answers to all the questions, all the mysteries solved. How cool for them, you know? And I know Mom would really dig knowing the mystery of life before the rest of us. Mom was an extraordinary character to me. Her and Dad, to me, were the classic, like, 21 Club, martini drinking, theater going, bridge playing, Nick and Nora New York characters. Those are the people I wanted to be when I grew up. And my favorite times, my absolute favorite times, always, and I miss them so much, is when the four of us, Alice and Lou, lived in New York for most of their lives, and they'll always be New Yorkers to me. When the four of us, Mom and Dad, Annie and I, we'd get dressed up, we'd meet for cocktails at 21, we'd go see the latest play, we'd go to dinner at Le Cirque or 21 again, some place that they knew them, and we'd, have cocktails and conversation and argue. Or we'd stay at home and we'd order takeout and play bridge and argue and fight. But we never fought in anger. Mom had this thing, every time Mom won a bid, Dad would remind her, Alice, you have to pull Trump, which she never did. And she would say, Louis, leave me alone, I know what I'm doing. And then she would never pull Trump and always win, which I never could figure out. I felt I had a special relationship with her. People from the boroughs, especially from Brooklyn, we recognize each other no matter how much success or money you've accumulated. And I felt like we really saw each other, not just what we wanted to see, but we really saw all of it. And all of it was okay. Mom made me feel like I could accomplish, not only that I could accomplish anything, but she would remind me that I had accomplished something at times that were difficult for me to remember, or when I was losing confidence. She was my second mom. She was loving, but tough. Nobody could cut through bullshit with one phrase better than Mom. She could be romantic about literature and art and music, but she was never sentimental about life. She looked at things straight on, and she confronted whatever she felt was wrong straight on. But she was always surprising to me because the really big things that you think she'd be really upset about, she wasn't. She would surprise you. She'd actually be really cool and really wise because she understood that a lot of the really big things in life you can't change and you have to accept. It was the little things you thought didn't matter that would stir her madness sometimes. But whatever she said in the heat of the moment, she didn't mean to be anything but loving in the end, truly. I think it's just because that's a surprise. I think it's just because Mom wore her heart on the outside of her body, so when she was hurt, it was big and visible. You know what I mean? I believe Mom knew that she lived a full and remarkable life. And I believe that she had great courage in letting it go. Like those times we'd be visiting in LA and we'd all be around and she'd be sitting with us and sometimes she'd join in or sometimes she'd just start singing a song that popped into her head and she knew every lyric. And then at the chosen moment she would lean up and say, okay, everybody out, I've had enough. And we'd all have to leave. I found this 4-line poem that I thought Mom would like. and because I think it's her. I strove with none, for none was worth my strife. Nature I loved, and next to nature, art. I warmed both hands before the fire of life. It sinks, and I am ready to depart.
Our Midrash states in the name of Rabbi Acha, some have dignity of old age without length of days, while others have the length of days without the dignity of old age. But in the case of Alice Weiss, the dignity of age coincided with a long life. Annie.
Welcome, everybody. I'm going to yell, Dad, okay? So you can hear me. I have to say that I was Alice's only daughter, and I say that with such privilege. And today, you probably are getting a good idea why. My mom created the most inviting, dazzling, beautiful places for people to gather. She had many homes where people loved to laugh and eat and stretch out, and they were very comfortable homes, and yet still had, if she wanted to, they still would have some kind of formality when called for. But she didn't really like formal very much. In fact, when my parents would go out, my brothers and I would use our fancy living room with a sea of purple long shag, and we would play touch football and have wrestling matches. That carpeting, that purple shag, says it all. Because she didn't like muted pastels or monochromatic rooms. She liked wow and zap and bang and pizzazz. Color splashes, big, bold patterns, the unexpected texture, everything oozing comfort. When you walked into one of Alice's rooms, you knew you were someplace you could always feel welcome, that always felt like home, whether it was Scarsdale or New York City or Palm Desert or Palm Beach Gardens or Los Angeles. So this is sort of where I come in, because I'm kind of the same way. A little bit of a bully, a little bit of a big mouth. I've been told my whole life, don't answer back. I still answer back. But she gave me courage to always follow my own path creatively. And one of my earliest and fondest memories was when she took me around the age of 7 or 8 to this community painting studio that this local artist who lived in Scarsdale had. And I think he was a little in love with her because he painted her portrait. And from the second I walked in, that smell of linseed oil and turpentine was a sucker punch that drew me in and kept me there, painting symbolically my entire life. My mom, for many years, had all her clothes made for her. She'd find these local dressmakers who would make everything from a bathing suit cover-up to a plaid silk organza cocktail dress with petticoats that floated around her, like the one she wore to my brother Steve's bar mitzvah. It's one of the black and white photos you'll see up here. And then another black and white photo of one that she made for me in the same fabric. But there was a downside to being her daughter. All this artistic intensity, all these wildly exotic ideas of what you could get away with was something hard to sell to my friends. I lived in the upper crusty town of Scarsdale, and they were really not like me at all. You see, my mom would dress me in outfits that didn't fit the norm. A gray and yellow polka dot skirt with a matching gray and yellow striped top. My friends would tell me, you can't mix dots and stripes. And yet mix she did, and I ended up having to defend her taste. In 3rd grade, I had a pair of soft, buttery, olive green suede boots, which I didn't really want her to buy me because they were weird, right? I wanted what everybody else had, a pair of Papagallos. But she insisted I had to have them. They were that stunning, her favorite word. She would say, if one of your friends jumped off the Brooklyn Bridge, would you follow them? Well, one of my best friends, Robin Carmel, who blackmailed me because I had kissed this boy, and she was going to tell everybody, unless I switched shoes with her. She wanted my olive suede boots. And she would switch in school and wear them all day as if they were hers, and then we'd switch back when I would go home. Well, that's when I realized that my mom had incredible taste, but that people were afraid of being different. And at our house, we did everything a little different. When Mom lost her sight, she would say that she'd be like this, and wave her hands in the air. And she would say that she saw blobs of color floating in front of her eyes. And I like to think that in her mind's eye, she really could still see, but she could see only what she wanted to. Because I guess what I loved most about her was that she didn't care a fig what anybody thought of her. She created her own stories, her own views of the world, marching to her own drummer to the end, in her gold sneakers, declaring, tough titties.
Evan.
Oh, that's your phone.
That's mine.
Okay. Hi, I'm Evan. I am the youngest child of Lou and Alice. Hold on.
No, just tip it up.
Oh, this tips. Okay. Hi, I'm Evan Weiss. I am the youngest child of Lou and Alice. I prayed for strength to get through this, so I have a few different things I want to touch on. So a eulogy is pretty serious business, but it's supposed to be positive, because right now my mom's soul is on the eternal journey from this world to the next. And these minutes that we're spending together is the most powerful force that's going to make sure that she gets to her rightful destination. And so I just want to state a lot of gratitude for everybody, and what an amazing turnout, you know, for a 95-year-old woman who outlived a lot of her friends. I mean, it's amazing as I look out, and so many old friends and faces and friends of ours that are here. But we are doing the holy work right now in celebrating her life and speaking out into our physical world to help her on her journey. My mom was, as Rabbi Mark would like to say, my mom was a classic both and I think she was fearless and fearful, you know, and as a child growing up in that household, we felt both of those forces. I felt both of those forces really, really strongly. I'm going to repeat a lot of stuff that's already been said, but I just have some notes. I mean, my mom was an incredible hostess, but you did want to stay on her good side, because if you wanted to come back to the party, you know, there was definitely, you could fall off the list, because my mom did not suffer fools.
even in the most important settings or the highest levels of society. You know, you were in or you were out. She was very demanding that way. My mom was a partier extraordinaire, and I'm surprised you guys didn't talk about this, actually. She welcomed our friends. I mean, our friends had a rank within our household, within our social world, that was actually higher than their friends. Like our friends, Jeff's friends from college, and Ann's friends, and boyfriends, and my friends, Buddha and Jeremy and Steve, and they ranked high. They got to sleep over in the house. It was like they were part of the campsite, and it gave us this power. We could kind of move about these very affluent settings where there were, you know, network presidents and advertising agency, you know, big people that my parents were trying to impress, and we were kind of milling about, you know, being sort of vagrants around them with a total pass. And when you get to kind of be that way, it gives you like a power and a confidence that you take with you, you know, into the world. And that happened because Mom trusted us. You know, it didn't always feel that way because we were always in trouble and getting yelled at, and you know, quite frankly, I was scared to death of my mother a lot of times, but we always had this free pass. It's kind of hard to explain. My mom loved culture. She loved art. She loved theater. She loved sports. I mean, when she would root for her Rafi, you know, the tennis players that she liked, they had a passion for tennis. And like with Alan King, they would go to these tennis tournaments and started a tennis tournament in Las Vegas. And you know, she was really passionate. Like, she understood the games. You'd go to a Knick game with her. You know, she didn't know it that well, but she knew it. Like, when she was there, she knew what was going on. She was a rowdy cheerleader. And as the other kids said, she loved style, she loved fashion, but she didn't like spending a lot. You know, she wasn't going to waltz into Chanel and buy off the rack. She was going to go to Jersey, you know, on those excursions that Amy was talking about. But what Amy didn't mention was they were going across the river to the discount warehouses where everything was 80% off, and that was the fun. My mom had so much fun finding that gem in the tub of stuff that she'd be going like this through. My mother was my father's greatest audience. My mom loved a good story. And she was around the greatest storytellers in the world, including my dad, Lou Weiss, who ranks as high as Jack Parr and Alan King and I'm drawing a blank, but how about Jack Parr and Alan King and 10 other people who told stories like those guys do, and my dad, and George Burns, and she loved that, and she would laugh and encourage them and encourage the back and forth, and the conflict, too. She may have shed her accent, which she desperately was always trying to do. She was always trying on different sort of voices and ways of talking. But she was, as Richard said, she was a Brooklyn girl forever. My mother was, to quote Sly and the Family Stone, my mother was everyday people. You know, she might have been elevated to, you know, she was rich or nouveau or whatever. You know, she got out of Brooklyn and had this great life and ran at the highest levels, but she was just not impressed. You know, she was impressed by people's actions, not their surface stuff. My mom was a genius. You know, I don't know what her IQ was, but one of her most intense traits was my mom could calculate everything that could possibly go wrong in a scenario and then plan against it. And this was, here's a symptom of that. They always got to the airport 2 hours early. And they joked about it, and they kvetched about it, but they always did it because that was her. She was like, well, the traffic and this, and if we miss the flight, we're screwed, so it's not worth it. This is what we're going to do. And this anticipation of like the Murphy's Law, of everything that can go wrong, and this consciousness of it, it's really intelligence. It's intelligence, and it had a profound effect on me. Like, I try to be the same way. I'm not always the early bird, but I want to be, you know, and I think about, and I talk to people who I work with and people who I mentor and assistants and stuff, and I'm always saying, well, you didn't anticipate that could happen, or this could happen, or this could happen, or this could happen, and something's always going to happen. And if you don't anticipate it and can't plan for it, or you can't head it off, and that helped me in business. It was something that I really learned. It helped me in representing other people and making deals. I remember going to the memorial service for my parents' friends and colleague Lee Leon and Steve Leon, who was eulogizing his mother, and this had a profound effect on me. And I love Steve. I don't know if Steve's here. Is he? Yeah, there he is. He talked about how his parents would, or his mom would dress up and get ready to go out to drive to the city to meet her husband and go to theater or whatever. And I so related to that. Like, I just remembered growing up, you know, watching my mom get ready to go into the city. You know, I'd be left behind. I mean, we got to go. We got to go a lot. I mean, I saw amazing shows and theater and stuff. But it was when I wasn't going and I could see her stressing and getting ready, and they were like the king and queen of Broadway, you know, going to the Tony Awards. And that was an incredible thing to grow up around. And it stressed her. But it also, like, she loved it. She loved it. My mom loved being the matriarch. She loved being a grandmother to Samuel and Marissa. It gave her great pleasure to not only plan trips, like she booked the flights and made sure that they paid for us to travel to the Hamptons, to Florida. And every night, you know, we're doing that. We're going to Carmine's for seafood. We're going to the beach club. There's a hayride on on 3 days after Christmas, and I already signed the kids up, and they were going to, you know, do the golf cart parade and blah blah blah. And she made sure that every activity was planned, and that we were going to have a very memorable time. I said that I'm the youngest, and there's a great joy in that, and there's a real sadness too. I was 6 years old when my oldest brother Steve went off to prep school, and I just want to describe something. So the house that we grew up in, my parents' bedroom was downstairs, and the kids lived upstairs. And it's now like this big sprawling house. Brian was just back at Scarsdale and took pictures of it. And they made it bigger when they were there, but when we were growing up, it was not a big house. It was really small. Like, we were kind of crunched together upstairs, and my parents had sort of this sequestered thing in the back corner downstairs off the kitchen. And I'm just flashed on, I don't know if you remember, like Dad's closet and Mom's hair dryer that she would sit under inside the closet. Anyway, so this dynamic, though, this downstairs, upstairs thing was huge in our lives. It was huge because it was us against them. I mean, it's, without a doubt, there were confidences, secrets never broken, cover-ups. Like, it was just, we needed to do what we were going to do. They needed to do what they were going to do. I think My mom never came upstairs. My dad came upstairs twice that I can remember. 2 times. That's it. So, but I had to kind of watch Steve go and then Jeff go away to school and then my sister Ann. When my sister Ann went away to school, I was maybe 11. I'm not sure. 12? Okay, 13. And then I was like an only child. So everything changed, you know, and the dynamic changed, and I traveled a lot with my parents, and I was like the third wheel, but I got in there, you know, a little bit more. I saw a little bit more, and I felt a little bit more. And, I'm going to jump around a little bit. So my relationship with my mother, you know, everything that I've talked about, I mean, so much wonderful stuff, but also, you know, it was a both end, and there was a time that it was hard for me. Like, I had a lot of fear. My mother was loud, and she could get really angry, and I was the littlest one, and it affected me more, I think, maybe. And like, and so I used to kind of keep my distance, kind of, or I had a kind of protection that I was protecting myself. And in the last 10 years, as Mom kind of quieted her soul a little bit, we became really close. And I learned, like, there was always this assumption, because I really resemble my father, and that I'm kind of the chip off the loo block, but I've really learned in the last 10 years that I really take after my mom. Like, the way my mind works and how I see the world is very much a very strong connection to her. And, you know, a lot of the pain that I felt became comfort, and a lot of the distance became intimacy, and fear became wisdom, and cynicism became joy. And I got to be comfortable, and all the judgments went away. And her rage became her gentleness. And I got to enjoy a clarity about just how many similarities we shared, and an appreciation for our differences. And I got a lot of comfort from that. And it's been a really powerful thing for me in my life and my sense of self and my own character. And I just want to finish this by saying that, you know, we're here at Beit Teshuvah. And this week, another rabbi that I'm friendly with, you know, taught me a lesson, and it happened to be about Shuvah. I guess the Torah portion deals with Shuvah. And what I learned is that this sort of gift that I was just talking about is my mother's Shuvah. And what the rabbi, and what Rabbi Mark has always taught me is when you do Shuvah, it turns into mitzvah. Okay, everything bad that you did in your life is transformed into mitzvah and blessings and powerful positivity. And it's the most powerful thing that there is, and it's the most holy thing that there is. The holiest of rabbis and sages and elders are in awe of the Tshuvites. And I'm just here to say that I really feel like there was a lot of tshuva in my relationship with my mother, and she did the heavy lifting. And it's a miracle. So I just want to thank my family, my kids, my beautiful wife, Gal, for all of the love and support that I've been getting, and everybody here. Thank you.
Ashes Chayil mi yimtza. What a precious find is an Ashes Chayil, a woman of valor. Her worth is far beyond rubies. Her husband puts his confidence in her and lacks nothing. She's good to him all the days of her life. Her children come forward and bless her. Her husband praises her and says, "Many women have done superbly, but you surpass them all. Charm is deceitful, beauty vain, but a God-revering woman is much to be praised. Extol her for the fruit of her hand wherever people gather. Her deeds speak her praise." So, as Lou has said many times to me, Alice made Lou. In fact, Lou and Alice and Lou, it was always together. And she could be difficult and not rude, he told me. And I met Alice, I think it was, 20 years ago or so? About that, right? And she didn't want to meet me, tell you the truth. She was not happy to meet me. She flew out. Lou and Alice flew out from New York because Evan was at Beit Shuvah. And it was when we were down on Lake Street. And she came in, and it was like, what is this place? And she came for a Friday night service, and we were doing our thing, and I watched her, and she got into it. And she looked at me, and she said something to me. She said, "You better take care of my son." Now, a lot of parents had said that to me over the years. Somehow, when Alice said it, I got afraid. I said, "But Alice, you know he's not easy." And she said, "He's my son. How could he be?" So I fell in love with Alice too. In fact, I don't know anybody that didn't. We were in New York. Harriet and I came to New York, and Lou and Alice picked us up. We got in the limousine, and we went to 21. Now, I can't even describe what it's like to walk in to the 21 Club with Alice and Lou Weiss. I mean, they liked Lou. There was no doubt about it. They respected Lou. But Alice, they fawned over. And Alice was a woman who loved. She was tough. She was difficult at times. And why? One time we had a conversation, just the two of us. And I said, "Alice, why do you have to be so difficult?" She said, "Rabbi, it's the only way you're going to be the best rabbi and person you can be is if I am difficult." And I thought about that. She believed in how good all of us could be. And she demanded it of us. When I would give a sermon, her and Lou used to come out from New York before they moved here for high holidays. I would give a sermon, and she would be nodding or shaking her head. And afterwards, I would go up to her, and she would give me a look and a wink. As long as I got the wink, the look never bothered me. Alice defined style and grace And she was just a stand-up broad. Her family meant everything. Her grandchildren, more. Her great-grandchildren, forget about it. And what a love affair. 75 plus years. And they were so perfectly suited. Lou adored Alice. Alice was, in Lou's words, elegant. Think about that. After 75 years, a man says, my wife is the epitome of elegance. And whatever Alice wanted, Lou did. I watched it. There were times when Lou wanted to do something, and Alice said, Lou! And it was like, okay, everything stops. She never wanted anything bad. Alice was a woman of deep compassion, deep charity. She believed in philanthropy. Some of it was in money. All of it was in passion and standing up for what she believed in. Alice Weiss was my friend. My friend on a very deep soul level. She was Harriet's friend. And while both of us know a lot of people, the friendship that we had with Alice was one of connection. We didn't even have to talk, but we connected. So, Evan, I want you to know something. I had an experience while you were speaking. And my soul went to heaven and talked with God. I had that experience, and your mother's soul is with Stephen. In Hebrew, the same word for breath is the word for soul. The soul has many parts. One part goes back home. Another part stays hovering here. We have the gift. We have the privilege. We have the honor. We have the love of Alice's soul being here and being with Steve. And I know she rests in peace. Please rise as I say the El Mole Rachamim. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Please sit down. I almost screwed up, and then Alice would get pissed at me. And just so you know, I'm still afraid of her. So, there are 3 ways to mourn. One is with tears. The second level is in silence. And the third and the highest level is with a song. And Lily's here to mourn Alice at the highest level with a song.
Ooh. My grandma, she loved to sing. I didn't know that about her until I moved here 6 years ago, and I had the privilege of living in LA for 4 years. And I got to know her and spend more time with her in those 4 years than I did growing up. And I'm very, very grateful for those 4 years, because even as she lost her eyesight and her days became more horizontal than vertical, it wouldn't stop her from just cracking out a tune, one that no one's ever heard. I was going through videos last night, and I'm trying to find these songs based off of these 2 lyrics she would sing and then just quietly go back to sleep. And they're just these old, wonderful songs. And so I was struggling to pick one. In my head, I was like, it has to be the perfect song. But I think it just has to be a song that I think she would have loved and that I can imagine her singing. So hopefully this is what that is. Louder? Okay. This is far away. Okay. I can only give you love that lasts forever, and the promise to be near each time you call. Oh, God. And the only heart I own is yours and yours alone. That's all. That's all. I can only give you country walks in springtime and a hand to hold when leaves begin to fall, and a love whose burning light will warm the winter night. That's all. That's all. There are those, I am sure, who have told you they would give you the world for a toy. All I ask for these arms to enfold you, and a love time can never destroy. If you're wondering what I'm asking in return, dear, you'll be glad to know that my demands are small. Say it's me that you adore, for now and evermore. That's all. That's all.
Now please rise. El mole rachamim shochin bamromim hamtzei menucha nachona tachat kanfei hashchina b'malot kadoshim utorim kazohar arkia mazirin et nishmat hanabat adam shalacha leolama began Eden tehem menuchata ana ba'al harachamim hastireha Beseter kanafecha lolamim, utzror b'tzror achayim et nishmata, Adonai hu nachalata, v'tanuach b'shalom al mishkava, v'nomar amen. Compassionate God, we know that Alice is in complete rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and pure. We know she's gone to her eternal home with you, and that she finds perfect peace in your eternal embrace. Her soul is bound up in the bond of life in heaven, the bond of life here. She rests in peace, and we say, Amen. Please, if the family and anyone else who would like to, would recite the Kaddish. Yikadal, Yitkadash Shemei Rabbah, B'alma Divra Chirutei V'yamlich Malchutei, B'chayechon V'yomechon, Uv'chayei Dechol Beit Yisrael, Ba'galal V'zman Kariv V'imru Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah Mevarach Le'olam Lamel Maya, Yitbarach V'yishtabach V'yitpa'ar V'yitramam V'yitnaseh, V'yitadar V'yitaleh V'yitalal Shemei Dekudsha B'rechu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, damiran b'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya b'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Hosei shalom b'mamav, hu ya'asei shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May the one who makes peace in the high heavens bring comfort to this family. Remember, God is with us always, and God comforts us, all mourners. Amen. This concludes our memorial. The families ask that everybody return to the Mirabella for a gathering and food. Yes, Lou.
I decided not to speak, but I changed my mind.
Anything you want.
Okay, and I'd like to speak to the audience as briefly as I can.
Okay.
But as hopefully articulate I could ever possibly be. Going, Annie.
No one can hear you. Talk into the mic, please.
All right. Right here. May I continue?
Yeah, they can hear you. Now they close.
May I continue? All right. I've been frustrated here because I didn't realize that I had a lot to say. And there are a number of speakers here, and I must say all overwhelmingly talented and pleasurable. But as it was going along, many of these stories were very old stories that I remember deliciously, clearly, and lived it. And now that I've passed a certain age, which is no secret, which is over 100, I probably outdate most people here who don't know what I happen to have overheard during that period. So, yeah, it's not a comedy routine. My feelings for Alice, I may have a bit of difficulty here, is that I was trying so hard to hear every syllable. Of course, I'm half deaf, and the half that does work doesn't work that well. So it's tough to try to hear what's going on the stage. And I must assure everyone here, I have to get the album or whatever was recorded and enjoy it for the rest of my life. Of course, I know I've missed too much. So jumping that, what you have missed, I'll not bore you with. However, I have lived through whatever, including 2 major wars, etc., overseas duties, and modest type of danger exposure, which gives me a right to have to wear little things that are important to me, but not important to anyone else. But I learned through that process of having to pay attention, and I do the best I can. Doesn't always work because I'm a talker. I'm not really a listener, and I enjoy what I do. So I'm going to bore you for a moment or two, just tell you that this was spectacular. I was waiting to hear it, but every syllable broke my heart because they were so close. And every person who got up to speak, I saw Alice's face. I didn't see the person. I saw Alice's face. And no one could have been taken away from me. I will certainly look at that tape 1,000 times from now on. I'm certain it's in there somewhere. But I wanted to thank certainly the rabbi and the help and Rosette and the strength that they have given to me and the effort they have made to be helpful assets to things that buzzed in my head. And I had a tough position of drawing a lot to which Alice was number 30 or something, or 12 days of waiting for her to be taken because of Christmas, so forth and so on, all justifiable things. But I had to keep waiting. And while I look forward to the waiting, because I have a chance to see Alice another day, but again, it tore my heart out continually. And I looked at people blankly. Alice was the most generous person you've ever met. She can give you anything she has. She would be delighted to. And there was nothing she would not attempt because it was either frightening or whatever. She had guts. She was a tough lady, and she spoke up. She spoke up most of the time, but many times I watched her lock up when she was upset, and she got very upset, including to clients. I had important clients. However, half of my clients, at least, showed up because Alice was there. I was the same mouth there talking about business. So those of you, which I believe and hope, or most of you, have been to our house, have been there and met fresh, different kind of people, because the business I was in was it was not a natural business. It was an artificial type of business, but it was very tight. And people would like to sit and listen to my stories. I would tell them stories. Then when Alice took over, forget about it. It's her theater, and she earned it because she was always clever in what she said, and she had humor. I can't live without humor in my life. She was the humor in my life. My early life when I was a bum, my middle life when I was a soldier and scared shitless, and my later life, which my uncle got me a job with the William Morris Agency, and I stayed there for 70 years. Not bad, not bad. This was all because of Alice Weiss. I couldn't function without her strength. I couldn't function without her input. And I couldn't function without her love. So even today, I look at you, I see Alice, I keep seeing her. I'm hoping she doesn't go away. That's going through me. And I just have to say it. I've had differences probably with everybody in this room. Hopefully, differences that ended up in the most peaceful mansion. I'm not the most delicate person in the world. But I'm surrounded now by friends and feel comfortable being able to unload a little bit. I had a year of hell with her illness. What she had to put through, nobody had hell, nobody. And she would insist I stay near her. I love that. I stayed home every day. Never, I quit my job. I quit whatever I was doing. But Alice was within herself, sitting with you, was a ton of humor, touch of activity, of up-to-date type of thinking, and of strength. She gave me great, great strength when I ran into tough situations. And there were a lot of them. And she was there for me. And she was there for everybody in this room because I watched her turn with different people. And she was never upset, really, with anybody. That was the bottom line. She never really got angry. Maybe a day later, you might hear something. But she had immense sensitivity. I had 70 years of that, of hearing this. And she had great strength, and she strengthened me out of so many bad situations just by talking with me. People didn't know she talked to me. Nobody, because she was always talking to somebody else. But she always talked to me. And she told me her secrets, which stay with me. Some I'll tell and I have told, but they all stay with me. But secret is secret. But she was such a huge force for me. And I'm sure certainly for my children and hopefully for everybody here, a huge force for honesty and for strength and for pleasure. She was a funny lady. She was a sick lady in the bed for a year. This was a funny lady. And she sat with my uncle, who's a major comedian, and tell him what's funny, and he would laugh and have a good time. Nobody had a bad time with Alice that I was aware of. So I felt that hearing which is only in my ears hinting at the quality of what was there. This was a brilliant young lady, extremely well-read, and always had information that was pleasurable to hear. You never went to our house or where Alice was around and talk about negative, junky kind of stories or gossip. It didn't happen in my household. It just didn't because of Alice. And people sat and listened. So as I'm listening to all this, and I have a lot of stories, and for the most part, I'll tell you about them if you've ever had time, because I enjoy talking about Alice. But you can't imagine what a jewel we lost in this lady, and what an error it was, whoever did the selection, who selected her to be honored. She should have been the most important person ever honored, rather than somebody giving 2 weeks of waiting to be whatever they did to her for 12 days. I had great anger in it, and I will be talking more about it, that were a major university doesn't have time to prepare the proper type of setup for somebody who's dying. How do you not do that with this great lady? So this was a great lady. Excuse me for taking all this time. There's a lot that I have within me that's bundled up. But all of it, you have to know, has only to do, all of it of importance has only to do is to the loss I've had. And as I believe most of us have, at her loss. It was too soon. And it bothered me and it stays with me. So forgive me as my complaint for the moment. I have funny jokes if you want for them.
Well, Lou, you got to tell us more stories when we go back. When we go back to your place, you'll tell us more stories, okay? All right. Thank you all.